afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time today, and also thanks to Dave and Louise for organising this event. So I'm delighted to be here myself today to talk about the European Chips Diversity Alliance. First of all, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a background on us and how we came across and joined Learnovate, and then we're going to kind of dive into the project a bit more. So I'm one of the founders of EudaOrg. It was founded in 2021 by myself and an ex-colleague of mine, Alison Kuschel, who's based in New York. And at EudaOrg, we provide advisory services and technology for workforce development and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you're going to hear diversity, equity, and inclusion a lot during this kind of 10-minute slot, but I'm just going to abbreviate it to DEI for now. So Alison is an industrial organizational psychologist, and my background is in positive and coaching psychology. And we found in our work as consultants, kind of prior to growing the business, that organizations were struggling to solve critical talent challenges, particularly in high capital intensive industries like the semiconductor or microelectronics sector that we'll be discussing today. So we had the pleasure of being able to learn about Learnovate in 2022 when we joined as members, and we initially did a research project with Learnovate on trying to understand best practice in diversity, equity, and inclusion learning and development. The research we did found that it had current learning and development in DEI has a limited impact on learners, and in some cases can be detrimental for the learners. So the research that we did found that it did provide some guidelines on how to improve outcomes for DEI learning and development for organizations, and was funded by Enterprise Ireland. But anyway, today we're here to talk about the EU Chips Diversity Alliance. So it's a pleasure to be here today to talk about it. We believe the project has the potential to drive meaningful positive impact on the microelectronics sector through ECDA's collaboration with the sector and focus on understanding the sector's needs and challenges throughout Europe. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is really a crucial element in addressing talent shortages in the sector and ensuring a resilient and strong sector in Europe. So you'll see here the consortium is co-funded by the European Union and spans 6 countries with 11 partners. Outside of the 11 consortium members, the project is supported by associate members from the sector who provide input and guidance on the strengths and challenges of the sector and addressing the critical needs of the sector, which is to attract, retain, and then also progress that talent over the coming years. The EU Chips Act is aiming to double semiconductor production in Europe by 2030, and talent will play a really crucial role in achieving these targets. So what are the objectives of the project? It is a 3-year project, and the goal of the project is really to have a long-standing positive impact on the sector. So in terms of the actual objectives, the objectives are to bring together industry and the world of education, including universities and training organizations. Also to develop an innovative methodology to gauge diversity, equity, and inclusion trends and dynamics in the sector in Europe. Practically, like how we are doing that, and I'm going to go into some of the research we've already done to date. This will be done via surveys, interviews, focus groups, case studies. One of the other goals of the project is to formalize a DEI advisory council where 2 reports will be produced, and then at the end of the project, a vision paper for the sector with actionable measures and recommendations for enhancing DEI in the sector. Finally, develop innovative training, which Learnovate will be, I know, very involved in, and operational tools to improve DEI in the chip sector. And also to be developing engagement programs such as mentorship, ambassadorship, and awards. So kicking off in April this year in Berlin, we are still at a very early stage of the project, but we do have some initial findings, and I thought today would be a good opportunity to share some of those findings with you. So at EudaOrg, we're co-leading the research work package with SEMI-Europe, and over the last few months, we've started completing some quantitative and some qualitative research. So as the goal of this project is really to be industry-led and allow the industry's voices and industry needs to drive all those objectives I told you about just there. Therefore, we're looking to make sure that the research stage ensures that all of the resources and tools that we are creating really is going to meet the industry needs and reflect what's currently happening in the sector. So to date, we have completed one initial survey. It won't be the only survey in the project, but this was completed over the summer months, and we had 74 participants from across Europe. So in terms of the research and what we found, firstly, we were really interested to understand why are organizations currently investing in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and over the coming 3 years, what is going to be driving their investment. So what we found is retaining and finding talent, as well as reputation and brand, are the biggest drivers for organizations in investing in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is currently and over the coming 3 years. But what's interesting, we found in terms of what they are doing to invest in DEI, currently we found employee experience was the biggest priority for organizations, but they do anticipate over the coming 3 years that this will change. And this is going to shift to talent pipeline. So maybe I'll just quickly explain those terms. When we say employee experience, we mean things like learning and development, culture, promoting talent within the sector. And then for talent pipeline, what we mean by that is thinking about people in education, whether that be in schools or in universities, and making sure that they are considering the semiconductor sector as a sector to work in. In terms of who the sector is trying to attract, the biggest priorities at the moment is attracting diversity in gender, in age, and in skill set diversity. So just, oh, you can see. Okay, so in terms of, so we just went through there what they're investing in and what's driving their investment. But the sector did identify some challenges currently. So the top challenges are to do with lack of goals and metrics, firstly. Secondly, budgetary and time resources to invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And thirdly, a lack of data and insights. So just one of the things we've just kickstarted in the last 2 weeks is we've begun interviewing executives from across the sector. This research is focused on understanding what are the current commitments of these leadership teams, and also the role that they believe the project can play in supporting both their organization and the sector over the coming 3 years. So just if anyone here is either in the sector or interested in keeping up to date on the project, you can follow the European CHIPS Diversity Alliance on LinkedIn. You can also check our website, diversityinchips.eu, and you can attend upcoming events. So there will be a lot of events over the coming 3 years, but 2 that are coming up in the coming weeks are the EU Digital Future Forum webinar, which is organized by SEMI-Europe, which will be happening on October 28th, and then Semicon Europe, where there'll be many ECDA events, which will be happening in Munich in November 12th to 15th. Okay, thank you for your time.